I said, I've missed your face.
How are you?
Good. I was muted. I'm like, why am I muted? I'm not.
I know I was. Well, I could see why you'd mute me, but I don't know why you were muted.
No, I missed your little face.
So funny.
It makes me happy to see you.
Oh wow.
It does. It does.
Are we the only two on?
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
We got a whopping whole 5 minutes. I mean, really? Jack Bloomberg just called me and he's like, can I call in? I have to drive in my car. I'm like, yeah, call in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can do that.
That'll be good. So Jeremy Skillins would like to be on at like 15 minutes before. He's done a lot of Zoom meetings, but he was a little, he just wants to make sure he's smooth to go. So
Yeah, he hasn't done one with me, so I can understand that.
right. And he's so I told him like 11:15. He said that's all he needed was 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. That's great.
That's perfectly good.
Okay.
The last one I had, the last meeting I had was it was the exec board meeting, and I had it on twice, so I canceled one of them, and the one I canceled was the one everybody was calling in on. So I had to like resend everybody a link like during the thing so that they could all come into the right one.
Deb confirmed. So Tuesday at 10 on the 21st, we will do a Zoom meeting.
Okay, I will send the invitation.
Okay, that'd be great.
At 10, right?
Yes. And then tomorrow we've got the one at noon, so I have all that set.
Yeah, he accepted that one.
Okay, great.
So funny. If I don't have my fan on high, I get hot. But then when I sit here, I get chilly. So when I wake up, like my neck and arms get chilly, but my head gets really hot if the fan's not on. I'm high maintenance, Jill. Very high maintenance.
You're hanging around me. Now you'll always be cold after a while.
I'm a mess. Paul O'Neill is joining us. I'm going to turn him on.
Okay.
Hello, Paul. Hold on. I can't unmute you. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
Now you are.
There
yeah,
you are.
and I were hitting it at the exact same time. I'm Jennifer.
Jennifer, I'm Paul. It's nice to meet you.
Hi,
Hi,
nice
Jill.
to
How are you doing?
Hi, good. I'm good. How are you?
How are you guys holding up? You doing okay?
Yeah.
We are.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. That is a wonderful service to our county.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. We're trying. It's. I mean, you guys understand it. Everything is changing so rapidly. It's like, it's crazy, you know?
It is. It's nuts. So now, are you guys taking the tests and processing?
We are, for Medicare patients, we are doing the nasal swab and shipping it to a lab for processing within 36 hours. So yes.
Okay. Wow. Cool.
And we're trying to secure the other tests that are quicker, and but there's so many of them coming out and they're not vetted yet by the FDA that you don't know how effective they are. You don't want to try and introduce them and have them be garbage, so people will never use your services again. So
right. So you're just doing Medicare, Medicaid?
For now, yes. But it's funny that there was a bill passed the other day that that says that most New Jersey companies, insurance companies, should be covering the test completely. So depending on how that vets out with the insurance carriers, maybe we'll be covering a lot more than what we're doing now.
Yeah. I'm surprised that it's not being fully covered by the insurance companies. That's just silly.
Well, the test range, the cost of the tests are all over the road right now because they're coming out so rapidly and they involve different testing, requirements that they're quite expensive, some of them.
Yeah. So we have Kevin Muldowney, our guest speaker, on with us, and Dominic Lauderaca, who's on with us.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to
How are
meet you.
you?
I was on a very interesting call today, which I think we're going to try to bring to the chamber. It was really cool. It was with the John Mousseau, who runs TAB, and he got about 13 different business owners from all different businesses together, and then was like an hour and a half call, and had everybody go through, say who they are, and then what opportunities and challenges they're facing. And then he took the top 3, and then everybody discussed it and offered options for everyone. You could share and join. It was really an awesome meeting to hear people struggling the same but differently, and then how they're handling it the same but differently. It was very interesting. It was really cool. So we're going to try to bring something like that to the chamber. Not sure when. We have a meeting tomorrow.
It sounds like a really good idea.
Thanks. It was fun. It was pretty awesome. Are you excited to impart all sorts of wisdom to us, Kevin?
Sure.
Do you have
Import as well.
do you have your drink? It is happy hour. I did remember mine.
Right.
Yeah, I did remember mine this week, but I won't eat my very crunchy gluten-free pretzels in front of you, because that would really be rude.
How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, Kev. How you doing?
I'm good.
Just living the dream, man.
Exactly.
It's my
Exactly.
35th day in captivity.
Nice. Excellent. Well, I'm glad there's a smaller audience. This way we could do a little bit more Q&A. I do have a PowerPoint, which I will share.
Do you want to wait a few? Because we have like 13 people registered and it's only 4:02.
Oh, sure.
I know you're eager to get started because,
Because I'm eager to get
somewhere
finished.
to be. I'm sure you have somewhere to be. So it's interesting. I'm finding that people, and they will join in. I'll mute everybody once we get started. So when people start to join, we don't hear everybody's stuff. But I kind of like to leave it open in the beginning so people can chat.
You guys have the most tragic family circumstances.
Is Jackie talking to us, Dominic?
Yeah. I thought I'd go tell her to keep it down here.
I'd like to hear. Sorry.
All right, everyone can hear you.
It would probably be nice of me to mute him, wouldn't it? Maybe. Or either that or he stuffed a dirty sock in her mouth. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
Jack, is that you?
That's me.
Okay. Jack Bloomberg's joined us by phone because he's working
Yeah.
and making a delivery right now.
Actually, because Kevin's doing my taxes, I can't afford a computer.
That was not
Wow.
nice.
So I'm on the phone.
Wow.
Bloomberg, that was not nice.
I couldn't resist that. So, but it's not true. Kevin's the best, and it's because I'm working. I have to go see somebody I don't know and get the virus. So
Oh.
No, don't do that. Wear a mask.
no,
So Elaine
it's a long
Shumway-
distance delivery.
So
It's a drive-by.
Elaine came up with the idea today to find out how we can make masks and put EMACC logos on them and give them away.
I just ordered 400,
For her?
and I had for a client, and I had to go to Canada to find them.
Really?
Wow.
But I'm silk screening, the name of the restaurant on them.
Okay, I'm
They're
gonna
cloth.
have her call you then, Jack.
Yeah.
Cloth bandanas.
Okay. I'm gonna
There's-
have Elaine
there's
call
none-
you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, there's none around here, but I found the source I've used in the past, and I took a shot, and they've got them in Canada. So
Okay. I'm texting her right now.
yeah, it's not such a far-fetched thing.
I know Governor Murphy one day on his thing was wearing one and had a big exit 109 across the front of it.
Really?
One of our
What a weird dude.
One of our people, we give out these, the regular blue masks here, and one of our people puts a different face on it each day. So
I
it's
like
kinda
that. I like that.
good. Yeah.
Well, you're
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those few people who could get the blue masks. You know, they're not that, you still can't get them.
Oh, I'll sell them to you.
My
Kevin's my
firstborn-
advisor. I'll let him negotiate.
My first and second born are already spoken for. I've already hopped them for as much as they're worth. So
I just keep spraying the same one and using it every day. I don't know.
I
Smells
ordered
good.
cloth ones, but they're so far behind in making them that they haven't gotten here yet.
I'm telling you, I really got lucky with this source in Canada.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, Kevin, it is now 4:05. So I'm going to hit mute on everybody. And why don't you go ahead and get started? If
Sure.
you need to unmute yourselves, go ahead and hit your space bar or hit your buttons that say unmute or raise your hand. And with that, I'm going to welcome you all to EMACC Connections. With our guest speaker today is Kevin Muldowney from David M. Muldowney Jr. CPA. So thank you, everyone. And Kevin, you go right ahead.
Sure. So as the little blurb about today's virtual meeting stated, I plan to talk about some of the tax changes that have occurred because of the COVID-19 virus. We're going to break it down into two separate parts, individual and business. We'll start with the individual. And I also just want to preface it, full disclosure, there are a lot of different changes that have occurred. There's not enough time. You could probably do a 2, 3, or 4-day seminar on all of the changes that have happened. So I'm not going to dive too deep into many of them. Since it is a small audience, we can ask questions either at the end or as we go along. Just kind of turn to Jen to unmute you if you have a question, or just kind of throw your hand up, and hopefully she'll see it. So we're going to start. Can you all see the screen that was shared? It has our logo and it says Part 1 Individual.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first and foremost, yesterday was April 15th, and it was the strangest April 15th I've ever been a part of since starting in this industry. Typically, we are rushing around to do last-minute finalizations of returns, to get returns e-filed, or to file extensions. Yesterday was very chill and very relaxed, which was a little strange, but the pressure that was extinguished because of the pushback of the date was very welcomed. So as it states there, the due date has been extended through July 15th for both federal and New Jersey. New York and Pennsylvania are as well. New Jersey, the New Jersey Society of CPAs had been putting pressure on the governor to extend that since this whole thing started. And we hadn't heard word that he officially did it until about, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 11 o'clock on the 14th. So a little bit better than the 15th, but still pretty late. He extended the due date of the return plus the first estimate, which is much needed as well, because if you don't know what you're going to owe, then the extension is kind of moot. So as you also see there, the estimated payments for the federal, it was for a couple of weeks since they extended their due date. The first payment wasn't due until July 15th, but the second payment was due June 15th. They kind of got their act together and pushed both payments are now due July 15th. New Jersey hasn't come around on that front yet. So the first payment is due July 15th, but the second payment is due June 15th. So I know it kind of wacky on that front, but any estimate that you make, any overpayment that you have from the filing of your 19 return that you apply to the first estimate will be applied to the July payment. We suspect that New Jersey will follow suit with the federal and push their second payment back to July, but it hasn't been determined yet. That also accounts for the CBT, which is the corporate return. But as I said, we'll talk about business later. On those slides, I don't talk about the extension, so I'll just get that out of the way now, but we can talk about business later. So the topic that everybody is talking about, because they started to hit yesterday, are the economic impact payments, the EIP, also known, more aptly known as the stimulus payments, the $1,200 and $2,400 payments that are hitting people's bank accounts. Contrary to popular belief, your CPA or your accountant does not know if or when that's going to hit. We actually received a handful of phone calls yesterday saying, when's my payment going to hit? My buddy down the road got his, but mine's not in my account yet. We don't know. We don't know what selection order they go in. Mine hasn't hit. Nobody in our office's payments have hit. But many of our clients and many of my buddies have. So I don't know when they're going to hit. I don't know if they're going by social security number, if they're going by address, last name. I have no idea. If they're doing random selection, that I don't know. So it's $1,200 for people filing as a single individual or at a head of household filers. $2,400 for the married filing joint, plus $500 per qualifying child. That is any child under the age of 17. There are income limits on those. 75,000 to 99 is for individuals. 112,500 to 136,500 is for head of households, and 150 to 198 are for married filing joint. The phase out range, that's what that range is. So if you make under 75,000 and filing as an individual, then you'll get the full amount, and so on and so forth. Phase out is $5 for every $100 that your AGI exceeds that bottom limit. So once you hit 99,000 as an individual, then you receive no more stimulus payment. What they actually are is an advance that on a refundable tax credit on your 2020 return, filed in 2021. So what that means is there's going to be a new line item as a tax credit on your 2020 return that was not there on your 2019 return. So if in 2018 and 2019 you did not qualify based on your income limits, but for 2020 your business tanked, you got laid off, your income went down, then you'll receive a credit. You won't receive that payment in your bank account now, but you'll receive a credit on your 2020 return. I just did a projection for a retired gentleman this morning. For 18 and 19, he did not qualify because his income was too high due to his IRA distribution. What we'll talk about on the next slide is that for 2020, they suspended minimum required distributions for IRAs. He's not going to take his. Therefore, for 2020, his income will meet those thresholds, and he'll get a $2,400 tax credit on his 2020 return when we file it in 2021.
Kevin, I have a question.
Yes.
Looking at these numbers, and when it says individual or head of household, there's a gap between 99,000 and 112,500. What, I didn't say that right, but you know what I mean, that gap. So does that
Right.
mean anybody making between that money doesn't apply? Doesn't get a credit?
If you file as head of household and you make $99,000, then you still apply.
You still get it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anything 112 and less, if you are head of household, it
Correct.
apply. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. And that the way that it's done is to hit those certain situations. You know, if you, I don't know, if in 2018 you were married and in 2019 you got divorced, you know, with your joint income, you didn't qualify, and now maybe a single or head of household, you do. And also another situation is if you got divorced and one of you claimed the kids every other year, you know, you'll get that extra 500 in based on one of the 2 years, or maybe even that third year, that 2020. So that's going to be the interesting situation. And we'll have to see what that form looks like when it is released by the IRS. But those are different situations that may come up. As I mentioned previously, required minimum distributions are suspended for 2020. If you have already taken it, you have 60 days to put it back. So if you took it in February, or took it in March, or took it before, you thought that this was going to have an impact, that the whole COVID, the whole coronavirus was going to impact you. So you wanted to take that additional funding, you can put it back within 60 days because they did suspend it for 2020. To kind of to give the incentive to donate to any charities that may be hit by this, they are allowing for an above the line charitable contribution of $300. So if you take the standard deduction, you don't get any credit on your typical tax return for charitable contributions. To incentivize people to do that, they are providing that additional deduction for those that do take the standard. Other retirement incentives or changes that are occurring due to the CARES Act is for IRA distributions. If you're under the age of 59 and a half and you take a distribution from your IRA, you're typically hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty, barring any of the exceptions. They are giving you a reprieve on that for 2020, no early withdrawal penalties. You can defer the payment, the tax payment on those for up to 3 years on distributions up to $100,000. So if you take up to $100,000 this year, you can defer that money for up to 3 years. And can be paid back over those 3 years, as I just mentioned. Another thing that they are doing is allowing you to give back that distribution over the next 3 years. So if you take $100,000 thinking you're going to need it, but you wind up not needing it, or 2020, 2021, or 2022 happens to, the market comes back, your employment is back to normal, you can then pay back those distributions and treat it directly just as a rollover. Typically, you are allowed to, on a qualified plan, going down to the next bullet where it states limit on plan loans increased to $100,000. Typically, you're allowed on a qualified plan to take the greater of $50,000 or 50% of the plan balance. The lesser of. You can now take up to $100,000 as a loan on that, so that gives individuals the funding if they lost their job or things have slowed up. You can now take up to $100,000 of a loan. Typically, the old rule is that if your employer paid any of your education payments, student loans, that stuff was included in your taxable income. Now it's not. They gave a reprieve on that as well. So if your employer, if you're having a hard time, maybe you got laid off, maybe your hours were reduced, once you get rehired, your employer can include student loan repayments and it'd be non-taxable. Part 2, businesses. There are many different CARES Act provisions that apply to businesses. Two main ones. one of which I deleted the slide for. I had prepared it, but deleted it because the SBA is no longer taking applications for the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan.
you
So
know when
those of
that
you that have
stopped?
gotten your applications in, you're fine. Anybody else, they are not until Congress frees up more money
Kevin,
to.
do you know when that stopped? When they stopped taking those?
I looked at it the other day when we were doing ours and it was fine. And then I looked
Okay.
at it again today and it's not.
Okay, thank you.
So within the last 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
So that first slide states the Paycheck Protection Program, aptly known as the PPP, is run by the SBA, guaranteed by the federal government. It allows, it is a loan first and foremost, for 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, capping employees at $100,000. So if you have an owner or a highly paid employee that makes $250,000 or made $250,000 last year, they are capped at $100,000. So 8333.33 per month is what they're capped at when calculating average monthly payroll. If that loan is used for payroll, rent, or utilities, with 75% of that being used for payroll, that loan is forgiven. The verbiage on the application for the PPP states no more than 25% used for something not payroll, so therefore 75% being used for payroll. You must maintain your staff and your payroll. So headcount, there's really no guidance on how they're going to have you prove this. But I'm guessing that the payroll companies are going to have something as far as headcount is concerned, what your number that you went in with and what your number that you came out with. Your level of payroll, what that means is the salary level. So you can't reduce anybody's salary more than 25% throughout this time. And you have until June 30th to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February. So if you let people go and then come April 26th, you bring them back, you have until June 30th to rehire them.
I did hear recently that the PPP money is gone as well.
That I've heard mixed things on. I don't know when any self-employed individual or independent contractor only had since last Friday to get their stuff in, and guidance hadn't come out on that until Monday.
Right, so that would be different, yeah.
So they either have to free up more, or maybe the amount for businesses has been used up. And now the pot for independent contractors and self-employed is still available. I don't know. I'm not sure on that. Okay. Last bullet states that loan forgiveness is requested through the lender that is servicing the loan. Typically, that's your SBA lender. They've opened up the funding to. I know of one bank that was originally not an SBA lender, but when the PPP came out, they applied to become a lender for it and got, rapid approval for that. They've also opened it up to non-traditional banks. So your Cabbages, your Intuits, those are all now lenders that have been approved for this PPP fund. I've heard of clients of ours that have just started to be funded. One closed yesterday. Another one, their funding has been reserved and should be funded within the next 3 to 5 days. Everything is done electronically, so all closing documents are done electronically. So has anybody on this call applied for and or been approved and or been funded for this? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Kevin, I applied.
Yes. Okay.
I guess about this loan application, and he was like, you have to contact your if you want.
Nicole, your
Like
microphone's
thinking of-
cutting in and out.
Yeah, it's fading on me too. Say that again.
Nicole, can you repeat that?
Sorry about that. Sorry, I was just talking.
No, you said something about applying, but your microphone cut out.
No, I was just, I don't think it applies to me because I'm a single, I own my own business and I don't have any employees. It's all me. So, I wasn't sure if there was a way I could get a loan just with regard to the education.
It actually does. It applies to you as a self-employed individual or an independent contractor.
Okay.
The guidance that was not out and just came out really this past Monday was what qualifies as your payroll, quote unquote payroll. If you are not on payroll and don't get a paycheck, your typical, taxes withheld type of paycheck. And what it says is that your any of your income that is subject to self-employment tax. So if you're a Schedule C, which you most likely are, that would be whatever's reported on your Schedule C.
Okay.
And that would be what's considered.
Fade it out again.
Yeah, now Kevin, you're out.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, your volume cut out, Kevin.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So it's your Schedule C earnings that
Okay.
you would divide by 12, multiply by 2.5, and that's what your loan amount would be.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. What just happened? Okay. Final slide, employee retention credit for employers. There are a lot more aspects of the CARES Act for employers. As I mentioned previously, you could probably have a week-long seminar regarding all the changes that took place. But I'm just kind of limiting it to the most popular ones and the ones that might apply to the largest number of people. Refundable payroll tax credit for 50% of wages to eligible certain employees. Exactly what it says. You can apply or you can get a refundable credit if any of your employees have been either quarantined, isolated, affected by COVID-19. The amount is a little bit less if they can't come to work because of caring for somebody, a parent, a child, because their school or daycare has been closed. And you can also choose to delay the payment of your payroll taxes. You can push that back half this year, half next year, if you so choose. A staff member here was on a webinar earlier today, and there are going to be 18 additional line items on the second quarter Form 941, which is the quarterly payroll tax return. And I can only assume that these are based on a lot of these CARES Act changes that have occurred. What amount did you elect to defer? What types of credits did you have? What credits have you received? Things of that nature. As I mentioned, there's plenty more, but the ones that I chose to go with were the ones that will most likely affect the most number of people. If you have any other additional specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. you could contact me via my page on our website, which is at the bottom of each slide. Jen has it. My email address is kevin@muldowneycpa.com. Very easy. We also have a load of information on our website. So I encourage you to visit that. If you go to our website, muldowneycpa.com, right at the top in the center is COVID-19 information. You can click on that. And there is, as I mentioned, a bunch of information up there. Links to the IRS website that can, kind of steer you in the right direction for the EIP, as well as the PPP. The application is up there as well. There's a letter from us on our letterhead that, kind of summarizes all things. And that's PPP, not PPI, for whoever's writing the notes.
It's pretty cool. Whoever's writing,
Whoever is, that's
if
great.
they're writing on the thing, that's pretty cool.
So with that, I'd love to open it up for discussion as far as what any of the people on this call have experienced, as far as the EIDL, the PPP, even the state EDA loan / grant. I know that was scooped up within about an hour or two once they opened the application. So maybe nobody got that. Maybe one of you was lucky enough to get it. So would love to hear any insights that I can share with our clients or just knowledge in general.
I applied for the EDA, but haven't heard anything, so can't provide you with information.
The state
The
one?
state one, yeah.
Kevin, I don't remember this mad dash to get the money in other situations. Is this just does this happen every time we have a stimulus like this in reaction to some kind of catastrophe, or is this because it's affecting so many more businesses rather than like a storm that we've had?
I think the latter.
Yeah,
I think the latter. I think
seems
so
like
many
there
people.
hasn't been this finite amount of money in the past that it seemed like it was such a rush.
Yeah. I think that's the case. I think that it affected so many people. They released the money, I think, within a short period of time after. So people were just kind of going for it. And when we talk about it in the office or even, amongst colleagues, I like to think of it as a ready, fire, aim situation where they kind of released all this money and then kind of issued the guidance later. So there's a lot of questions that even, all the people I'm on so many newsletters, different practitioners, different CPA firms that are putting out information on this, not only to their clients, but to anybody on their newsletter list, anybody that's attended a seminar that they put on. And there's even the larger firms still have all these questions that there's really no guidance to. The main one is, what are they going to count as payroll for the forgiveness of this loan? That's probably the biggest one. So they're releasing all this money saying it's going to be forgiven if you use it for payroll. But how are you going to count that? I'm sure once the guidance is out, your payroll companies will have forms that you can submit to your bank, to your lender, to request forgiveness. Also, how is this going to be treated on your books as far as loan forgiveness? Is it going to offset your payroll, therefore technically making it taxable? We don't know. That's another question that's up there. So,
Do you think, idea-wise, that when they released the money so fast, they weren't expecting the shutdown to be so long? So they released it so quickly without putting the right guidelines in place first. And you know, now that it's gone on longer, you know, how do they backtrack or handle any of, like you said, all these questions that are still coming up, like who owns the loan forgiveness and who has to prove that and prove to who and why, and you know, what are the establishments set up to handle all of those questions and issues?
That's definitely, I would say, without a doubt, what happened. I mean, I don't want to say there's no end in sight, but really there's no end in sight. We don't know how long this thing is going to go on for. I know Governor Murphy just closed the schools until May 15th. That was just announced today. So that's, you know, that.
That's the kindergarten teacher that just raised his hand.
So, I mean, we're at least.
My fear is as we go in like two-week increments and it just starts bleeding into the summer and stuff. And we got to.
Right.
I almost
Right.
feel better saying, all right, you know what, May's gone. Just give me a date, you know?
Right.
Right. So this was supposed to, so the 8 weeks that this was supposed to cover your payroll for was the date of the funding. So I don't know if the plan is to have the lenders drag their feet and release the funding later so that it can take people out longer. As I said, ready, fire, aim.
Do you think that it would have been, if they had waited and held off and put more thought behind it, it would have been more organized and more evenly dispersed, or was it just not enough money because it's affected so many people?
I think it's the quantity of people that it's affecting. I mean, it's affecting obviously all retail. It's affecting all restaurants. It's affecting all travel industries. It's just so widespread that.
And every region of the country as well. You know,
Right.
That's something we don't usually see.
Right. Exactly. That's another thing. I mean, you mentioned all the disasters before. They were really pinpointed. You know, you
And
have
it's-
your.
It's very
Yeah, every
regionalized, and even the people that live within that region will tell you it's a lot more localized than it is.
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
terms
You
of
go
damage.
back to Sandy. That was really shore based.
Yeah.
You go to any of the tornadoes and stuff out in Oklahoma or things like that. That's really just regionalized. This is national.
So this is supposed to be happy hour, and that was a really heavy subject. So tell us a joke or something, or somebody come with a light question, please. I thought Kevin's always
You
so
wanna hear my
excited. Who make taxes exciting?
You want to hear my comment about why I don't have a computer again?
No, we don't want to hear that again. Nice, Jack.
I mean, if you think about the intent of any stimulus and any help that the government is providing, it's to keep people working. So if you keep paying your staff, I think that there's no question that your loan is going to be forgiven. How they prove that, you know, that's another story. But you know, if you've done it, you know, if you're still at work and you're paying your staff, then however you have to prove it, you can figure that out. But I don't think you'll have an issue.
It's very interesting because I'm not, as we all know, I'm not in the loan business, but I have learned more about loans than I ever thought I could possibly learn from the banking standpoint. Having, you know, a banker working on the floor beneath me, I know that a lot of the stuff that they have done for, and I can only speak to what he's doing in his bank, is they asked for all the payroll and they didn't fund the loans until they didn't fund the loans until they got the proof of what the payroll is, the calculation, and it was handled by the individual lenders who know those companies. So the documentation of proving that is probably, they already have part of it anyway.
Right.
Because they were not going to lend money to somebody who didn't need the money and wasn't going to use it properly. So the one thing that I know came up in the beginning of all this when the money came out is a really big national bank got the majority of the loans, all the money right first, because they started taking it day one when the smaller banks had to figure out what is the policy. who is paying us back for these loans? Like, where's the money coming from? Is it all coming, are we carrying all these loans, or is the government going to give us the money for these loans? So from a banking standpoint, there's been so many unanswered questions for the bankers themselves to handle the loans they're supposed to be giving, which I find very, very, it's been an interesting learning curve for everyone, I think, on this situation, which was why I brought up the question of then if they had waited a little while longer, thinking it might have, not realizing it was going to last longer, but waited a little longer to make sure stuff was in place, would the money have possibly been doled out more evenly and slowly?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. But, you know, I mean, the issue with this, again, everything is so individual to the time and the individual catastrophe we're dealing with at the time. This was about cash flow. You know, this was about keeping people afloat, and they needed cash flow to make payroll that Friday or next Friday. And you know, it was just, they needed to get the money out, which I get. But.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or anything you'd like? Now we've got all this extra
Kev, what?
brilliant people. What would you like to discuss?
Kevin, what are you filling your days with? What are most of your clients coming to you with? You know, questions about their individual stuff, questions about their business, you know, loans and stuff like that, or what?
Yeah. So the last couple of weeks, it was definitely the what loans are available for me, how to navigate the PPP, what is my average monthly payroll? Let's calculate that out. Am I going to get it? Should I get it? You know, I don't really know of a business that really wouldn't.
Right.
And it was really, watched a lot of webinars on how to calculate it, on all the changes occurring from the CARES Act, you know, put on by some of the larger firms.
Good.
You know, just trying to navigate what all the changes are and how they'll affect any of our clients and in general.
Did you have anybody actually file now on time?
What's that?
Did you have any clients who actually were ready to file and pay and do that already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
We've been
curious.
also
Everybody's
plugging away at
taking advantage of
1040s. You know, it's kind of dispersed. Bad thing
I mean,
is
if someone was ready to file, wouldn't your advice be to file, get it done with, get it over with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if they were doing a refund. That's what any of the articles that you read in government thoughts was that if you do a refund, file so we can get it to you, and that'll keep the economy going. So we have a lot of people that were due refunds that, you know, we kind of push them to the front. And now also people that, we're having them delay until July 15th.
Sure.
Something else that we typically do is if somebody's overpaid and they pay estimated payments, we'll typically apply that overpayment to the first quarter estimate. Just because if you file April 1st, your first estimate is due April 15th. So by the time you get that money back, you have to turn around and send it right back to the government. But now what we're doing is we're refunding that money because our first estimate is not due until July. So I'd rather have it be hanging out in their bank account than hanging out in the IRS's bank account.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Chris, where are you? Because I'd like to really go to wherever you are. Right
I just felt like getting away today, and I'm down at a bar. It's happy hour, I thought you said, you know?
It is.
Down at a bar in
Right.
St. John.
Are
Yeah.
you going to do, you're in St. John, are you going to do any of those like really cool
I'm
moves
gonna-
to make a
You
drink?
know, if I just got off the plane, or I would take my shirt off and stuff. I'm just a little white, you know?
Guys, come down to Lakewood. There's plenty of parties down here.
Yeah,
I hear. If I really want a 2-week vacation in Riverview, I should come to Lakewood for an afternoon.
you know.
There you go. You know, let's forget the suspense about whether you're going to get it or not. Just come to Lakewood. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Party.
All right. So So if nobody has any other questions and we're all ready to start the weekend on Thursday at 4:45, we could do that.
Hey.
You're welcome for not going too long.
Thank you, Kevin. You're awesome.
Good job, Kevin.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
And I
You're
do
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Kevin.
I do wanna
Thanks,
let
Kevin.
And
you
I'll
guys
talk to you
know-
tomorrow, Kevin, so.
Thank
All
you.
right.
I do
Have a
want
good
to let
weekend,
you guys
everyone,
know
too.
on Monday, we have Jeremy Skillings at 11:30 Monday morning. He's going to be talking about SEO and, doing some back end work and working on your business instead of in your business when you might have a little bit more time than you normally would. Making sure that your SEO is pulling what it can during this time to keep you in the top of the searches. And then on Thursday, a week from today, we're going to have our lovely Chris Ryan. I don't know if he'll be joining us from St. John or not. He'll be going over some of the insurance information regarding COVID-19 and any of the changes and that kind of stuff that's available. And then we are followed up by Kathy Naughton on Monday, the 27th at 11:30. She's going to be doing a lot of what we were just talking about with the PPP is how to start thinking about your staff going forward and how to bring your employees back and how to re-enter back into a different new normal. And then on Thursday, the 30th, we're going to have Elise Leibowitz. And Chris, for you on Monday, the 4th at 11:30 in the morning is going to be Karen Jaffrey about becoming a parent teacher, homeschooling, and some help on that. So there's a couple of
She's getting me 6 weeks into my tenure here.
I know,
I should
but,
have
you
tenure
might-
by now.
She might have some fresh ideas for you. Anyway, so that's what's coming with EMACC, and we've made a lot of changes to our website. So if there's any information you need, and I do want to take a minute to shout out to Paul O'Neill, who's on the phone with us today. He's from Passport Health, and he's been working with Jill in the office, connecting with Brookdale to hopefully set up some testing sites a little bit more locally where he can currently do testing for Medicare and Medicaid, and hopefully, so that'll be interesting coming up. So it's kind of nice to have a couple new faces today.
Yeah,
And,
Appreciate you letting me on. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
You guys
Paul,
have a good-
Paul, I'm a Yankee fan. I stared at your name the entire call. I just want you to know that. Welcome, and thank you.
You could also been a Reds fan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
Wait a minute, anybody go back to Ron Bloomberg?
No, only you, Jack. Only you.
I know, I knew that was coming. I set myself up for that one.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
You guys.
All right.
All right, we'll
Have a
see
good
ya.
night.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye
Yeah,
now.
thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Jem.